BMW E46 in Australia. So this video is not only going to talk about the BMW E46 itself, but also on the Australian perspective and opinions on BMWs in general, and that's what I'm going to start with. I don't know if this is the case in other countries, but in Australia the majority of BMWs are bought more for the image of owning a BMW rather than for the car itself. That image being that if you own a BMW you are probably successful, and BMWs have always been known as a very good car. This BMW is an E46 3 Series, the fourth generation of 3 Series, which was released in 1998, replacing the third gen E36. This car is a 1999 model pre-update. There are a lot of different motors available in the E46. The base motor was the 1.9 litre M43B19, which this car has. It's a 4-cylinder single overhead cam motor, making either 77 kilowatt and 165 newton meters in the 316i, or 87 kilowatt or 180 newton meters in the 318i. The reason for the power increase was due to the 318i having a variable length intake manifold controlled by a component known as a DESA valve, which I had to rebuild on this one after the original diaphragm was blown. Then there was the 2.5 litre M52 TUB25 straight 6 motor used in the 323i, which made 126 kilowatt and 245 newton meters. This was a full alloy dual overhead cam motor. Then there was a 2.8 litre M52 TUB28, which was a larger displacement version of the M52 TUB25, and now it made 142 kilowatts and 280 newton meters of torque. The ultimate motor available in the 3 Series was the 3.2 litre S54 straight 6 used in the M3. This put out 252 kilowatt and 365 newton meters, which is pretty impressive for a naturally aspirated 6 of the era. Keep in mind a V8 HSV Club Sport of the same year put out 255 kilowatts, so only 3 kilowatts more than the BMW. As far as I'm aware, diesel E46s were not sold in Australia either. There were a few different transmission options, and all models could be had with either a manual or an auto trans. This 318i has the GM 4130E 4-speed auto, which is an okay transmission, but in my opinion a manual would have made this car a lot nicer to drive, considering its low power and great handling. Being a luxury car, the E46s, at least those sold on the Australian market, were very well spec'd. This 318i came standard with a full leather interior and an economy gauge under the tacho and ABS. It has also been optioned with a sunroof. Originally they would have come standard with 15-inch steel wheels with hubcaps, but this one has some really nice M3 18-inch alloys fitted to it. There are a few different body styles available in the E46 range. The sedan was by far the most common model in Australia, but there was also a coupe, a hatchback, which had different front end styling with distinctive twin round headlights in a similar style to the AU Falcon XR, a station wagon and a convertible. Both the sedan and wagon had slightly different front ends when compared to the convertible and the coupe. There was also an update in 2001 where they received updated styling, including a slightly different front end, and 4-cylinder models now got the N42 motor, which was an alloy block dual overhead cam motor which replaced the old single head cam motor. Coupes and convertibles had their styling updated 2 years later in 2003. The thought of owning a BMW never really crossed my mind until I was offered to trade this for one of my cars. BMWs really aren't too common in country Western Australia. They are more popular in the city, but even then they're not as common as Holdens, Fords or Japanese cars. I've owned a lot of cars, and usually if I buy a new one, no one really cares unless they're into cars, but when I got this 3 Series, a decent amount of people I knew said things like, "Wow, you've got a nice car now," and similar, which was surprising. The BMW 318i reminds me a lot of a Commodore of the same era, in particularly the Calais. The way it handles is similar to the Holden, but slightly better. However, a Holden has a lot more power than a 318i. But a more fair match would be to put a 6-cylinder BMW 328i sedan up against a 3.8 litre V6 Holden Calais. Both have similar power, both with GM automatic transmissions. The GM 5L40E was used in both the E46 and the Commodore. Both are rear-wheel drive, both have McPherson front and independent rear trailing arm suspension. Both have a very comfortable interior and are good for long distance highway cruising. Mind you, it would have to be a smooth highway in the case of the BMW. Both have similar build quality. They also both have window switches in the centre console, which is a feature I like. And both the cars are on the same bolt pattern for their wheels, 5x20. Compared to a Commodore, the BMW has much stiffer suspension, which is probably the most noticeable difference between the cars. It's also smaller than the Commodore too. Overall, I like this BMW and it's a nice car to drive. The biggest letdown is probably its low power, but it's not bad considering it's a 4-cylinder. So is an E46 a good car to buy? Well, you can get them cheap for similar prices to Falcons and Commodores. So it could be an alternative to one of those cars, but keep in mind parts are a lot harder to get for a BMW than a local car, and a lot of the time will have to be ordered in. Personally, I would say a Falcon or a Commodore is a better buy than an E46 due to maintenance and parts availability. The other car you could compare the E46 with on the used car market would be the Mercedes C-Class. Or you could even compare it to the Mitsubishi Verada if you don't mind that it's a front-wheel drive. So overall, the E46 is a decent car and it's nice to drive. And these days you can get them for a decent price, although they are getting a bit older. Okay, BMW 318i, 0 to 100k an hour or 0 to 60 mile an hour. She ain't fast, she's slow.